All right, we are live.
We're back once again.
We're back once again. Welcome to the Pretty Sketchy podcast. I'm here as always with Michael Marshman, author and brilliant writer of the comic book Homoko King, which I am currently illustrating. So since last time,
I think brilliant is a bit of a strong word.
no. All right,
Ah,
maybe it's got to be proven yet, but at this point, it's looking pretty good. So, I don't know. Maybe first things first, I should probably start by saying I've started page one again because I again was unhappy with it, but I'm pretty happy with how things are traveling at the moment. I don't know if you can see that right now.
pretty much half of the course for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, one day I'll get off page one, and then we'll be we'll be getting somewhere. I decided I've been doing a lot of looking a lot into, and this is here we go. We should acknowledge we didn't realize this at the start because we took the stream from 2 weeks ago, and I thought, well, why the fuck don't we just dump out the audio and make it into a pod? That's something killing two birds with one stone, more content, putting ourselves out there a little bit more. But what it means is this is a very visual live stream. So we've got to acknowledge the audio listeners. So if anyone's listening on iTunes or whatever, welcome. And I'll do my best to explain what I'm doing as I'm going so that it doesn't seem like I'm just quietly scratching away at nothing. So first, let's talk. Well, I mean, okay, first things first, let's talk about the name. We've decided to call the podcast Pretty Sketchy Podcast because it is. And I like the play on words of it being, about sketching and, making pretty sketches.
I thought it was because you were pretty.
Oh, thank you, man. You too. Yeah, no, it just, I don't know, it just came to me. So I thought, and literally I was like, if I don't do this tonight and get it all edited and up live on iTunes, I'm not going to do it because I'd never done it before and I knew that it was going to be complicated. And so I go, okay, well, I'll go with that name. It's pretty cool. And away we went. So I made a logo and did everything. And so now we're the Pretty Sketchy Podcast and welcome. This is our second one. Okay, so let's get back to the art. Basically, what I've been looking at a lot lately, and as I mentioned in the last podcast, my biggest issue as an artist is I've always been about the hero in the picture, like the main subject of the artwork, and
Very foreground.
yeah, very very foreground oriented. And I've been looking a lot into putting those characters into an environment because in a comic book that's the most important part really because you got to establish where they are, what they're doing, visual storytelling, so to speak. So I've been looking a lot into things that I never really paid much attention to outside of just instinct, like knowing how things look, but realizing that most of the artists I admire are brilliant at things like using vanishing points and perspective and stuff like that to really, make things look realistic and to give them like a real sort of sense of volume and space. And so I've changed the design a little bit. So instead of having Nisa standing on a girder with the camera behind her looking out at a cityscape, I thought, well, it would be more interesting to really show, her position by moving the camera around and looking down, to give that sense of height and scale and illustrate that she's standing on a girder, 20 stories above the ground and it's not an issue for her. And I think that speaks more than, it says more than just having a, like, standing holding onto a cable or something like that. And so I came up with this idea of having like, using a vanishing point to establish the height of the buildings and stuff like that. And I tried a few different things. I had it slightly angled at one point, and it just became really complex. And I had a lot of issues with the buildings themselves sort of flaring out into kind of like almost like a fisheye sort of effect when you follow the vanishing point to its extremes, and so, yeah, I came up with this single top-down sort of image. And I don't know how well you can see it in the stream. It's kind of dark, but, you've got a road down here, and she's obviously, the girder sticking out from the building. She's going to be seated in this area, basically just contemplating, and you can see the buildings on the other side of the street. Now, I'm going to distress these buildings. At the moment, I've just used like the vanishing points as a tool to sort of, establish the bulk space of the buildings. But now I've got to go in there, and that's actually something I was going to talk to you about. Visually, How we're talking about a dilapidated city. What sort of level of decay are we talking? Are we talking about collapsed buildings? Are we talking about, like nature claiming the buildings back at that stage, or are we sort of thinking more along the lines of, I guess, like what's like, I don't know if you saw the movie I Am Legend. It's sort of, it wasn't, the city was being reclaimed by nature, but it wasn't to the point where it was bare bones structures. It was still buildings and things like that. So that's something I was going to sort of ask you about. Where are we as far as the decay of the city?
I'd say it's relatively recent, but it's pretty heavily damaged.
Right. Okay.
So, like, the event that triggered this whole thing was very impactful, but because you got like Nissa, who's in her early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
When you saw her talking with her grandfather, she's around 13, 14 years old.
Yep.
So that's like a 10-year gap.
Yeah. So
essentially, and whatever happened in that 10-year gap.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, I don't know how well you can see that. So yeah. Okay. So essentially, I mean, I've got skyscrapers in the shot, and so now I guess the point is to try and then take them back to the point where you can see that the environment is crippled, So that's what I'll be working on with this.
I'd say a lot. I wouldn't even say nature's taking it back, because even nature took a heavy hit.
Okay.
Like outside of the outside of the city, it's just like a wasteland. It's pretty dead. It's friggin' Mad Max style sort of death.
Okay, yeah. So we're not talking about like vines creeping out of buildings, or anything like that at this stage. More just sort of like rubble and destruction.
Yeah, fire and brimstone.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'll work on that. What do you got for us, man? You got any ideas about what you want to talk about today? We got the world's listening, bro.
The world, all three people.
Yeah.
Not a hell of a lot. I mean, I watched Warcraft for the second time the other day.
Oh, okay. I have not seen it. As somebody who has not seen it, give me a rundown. Like, convince me I need to watch that movie. Okay, bearing in mind I've never played Warcraft, or anything like that. So.
That was actually one of its faults. Like, it's not exactly friendly to people who know nothing about the lore and the story of Warcraft. But if you're someone that really enjoys eye candy, like visually, the movie is phenomenal.
Well,
like
see, now this is the thing. I remember watching the trailers early on and thinking to myself, I don't think they've quite pulled it off. Like, to me, it always, like, the digital characters had this little bit of, like, as well animated as they are, it is 2016. They didn't have, there was still that uncanny valley there, Now I might be misinterpreting that. Maybe they polished up a little bit before release or something. I don't know. I saw pretty early trailers. So that's not the case?
No.
Right on.
That's probably some of the best CG I've seen, at least in the last couple of years.
Yeah, right.
The only thing to top it would be I can never remember which order these came out in. The latest Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. I was gonna say that was I watched that again recently and I was like, holy shit, they really got that right, didn't they?
And then you see friggin' Legend of Tarzan, and you're like, how the hell did they fuck that up?
Well, see, this is the thing. Like, the inherent problem with these movies, and anytime they do CGI characters, the reason they're doing a CGI character is because that whatever they're doing doesn't exist in real life. Yeah. And that's, to me, that's the biggest hurdle with realism with those things is you've got characters that don't exist. We know in the back of our minds they don't exist, so they're just going to look unnatural. That's the problem they've always had, to me, with the Hulks, particularly the Ang Lee movies or movie or whatever back in the day. And before that, it was what was the one before that?
The TV show?
No, that was awful. No, the what's that other guy? Eric Bana one.
That was the Ang Lee one.
Yeah, and then there was Ed Norton. Yeah, so both of them, I think the biggest problem they faced was, one, they're struggling with like CG for like feature characters in a movie was kind of much more of a bigger deal back then. But giant muscular dudes with green skin don't look natural. no matter how well you animate them and how well you create the graphics, they just don't look like something that occurs in nature. It looks like a giant weird CGI frog guy, you know. And that's when I can actually tell if they're green or not. You know me, I'm colorblind. Yeah. But that's part of the problem, and it's the same with, I guess, the orcs or whatever in the Warcraft movie. Are they green?
Some are, some aren't. There's
Yeah.
like law reasons why some are and some aren't.
Right. Okay. So again, a giant green dude. It just doesn't, even to me who can barely tell the difference. Like maybe that's the problem. Maybe to me, it looks like a bad skin color because I can't really tell the difference between the green and the flesh tone if in darker skin tones like that. Like what was it? Gamora had no idea she was green, you know, because she's normally
pretty defining feature of Gamora. As
yeah,
well.
that's right. And she has remarkable. What would you say, mocha colored skin typically? And here she is. Like, to me, I just thought, they're going to be heavy with the makeup, you know, because I don't know the difference. Yeah, that's my cross to bear. So go on. So as far as the movie, what does the movie begin with the lore, like the start of the lore of the thing, or does it pick up from a certain point in World of Warcraft's history?
Pretty much starts from the beginning.
Okay. Yeah.
From what I can tell, anyway. But it still doesn't. It sort of it gives you a quick rundown of like the Orcs world's dying. They need to go to a new one. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much all the setup that they give you. Like for someone that doesn't know Warcraft at all, that's nowhere near enough.
Okay, fair enough. So when you say their world, is it pan-dimensional? Like they come through a portal or something like that, or how does it work?
Yeah. Okay. They basically come from a different dimension, I guess.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And into the world of man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And many other things.
Man. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, had you done much World of Warcraft playing at I don't ever remember you. I mean, I'm certain I've heard you talk about it, but I don't know if I've heard about you talk about playing it that much.
I've never touched World of Warcraft.
Oh, really? Okay, it's cool. So you're coming at it from the same perspective as me. You're like, I don't really get it.
Not necessarily. I did play the RTSs.
Oh, okay. Yep.
2 and 3.
Yeah, right. Okay, so World of Warcraft, no, but you understand like the lore is the same throughout the history of the games, right? Like canon.
Yeah. Well, like the movie is based on like even before that. So
okay,
if the movie is proven a success and they make sequels, it will eventually pass into what Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3 story.
Right. Okay.
Well, I mean that's a lot of movies though. If they do it right, that's a lot of movies.
But do you know what? If there's one thing I know about Blizzard, they got the cash.
yeah, that's true.
They can probably afford to lose $1 billion or so. You know what I mean? They're of their what is it? Their like weekly revenue. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, I'm trying to think. So Travis Fimmel's in that, isn't he? Yeah. Travis Fimmel, guy from Vikings.
I've never watched Vikings.
Okay, then yeah. All right. You should watch Vikings.
Fucking shut that down, didn't I?
Good show, man. What about other big news this week is Luke Cage just went live on Netflix, and it's all anyone's talking about. Did you watch any of the other? You watched Daredevil, obviously. Did you watch?
I watched Daredevil. I haven't gotten around to watching Jessica Jones yet.
You should totally watch Jessica Jones, man.
Absolutely.
As far as like, it's one of those ones we sort of got to because like, oh, maybe we should watch this other show because Daredevil, and then they're going to bring out the other ones, and eventually it's going to be this and that. And I convinced Nat to watch it, and I at first I'm like, okay, because we tried to watch it earlier on when it first came out because I'd heard good things and stuff, and we got about halfway through an episode, and I'm like, I'm not following who it is or what's going on so much, so I turned it off. Really didn't give it enough of a chance because we went back to watch it this time begrudgingly because we'd been through all the Berlanti shows, we watched all of those, and we were sort of stuck for something to watch. And for some reason, we seem to be into the whole superhero vibe at the moment. And I said, look, let's just give this one another run. We'll watch an episode. Hey, you there?
Yep.
Whoa, lost the internet for a second there. Let me just check the stream still going.
I think it's back.
It's back. We're back. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah. You know what? Got the world's best internet now, and for whatever reason, um, the
You
laptop
still get dropouts.
the laptop I use to run this thing, it just keeps dropping the router, and then it
Ah,
just
okay.
connects to some indiscriminate other random internet portal, which is strange because I've all of the networks in my area. I've changed it to do not automatically connect, and yet there it goes. All right, cool. So that's all good. We're back. Don't panic, everyone. Where were we? I forgot what we were talking. Oh, Jessica Jones. Yeah. So
Yeah.
their take on a villain, like they always try to have like the guy terrorizing the city, or try and take over the world. I mean, with the TV shows, not so much. It's not as big as like your Avengers and stuff like that with world domination.
They're a lot smaller, a lot more focused.
They are, yeah. They're making trouble in the local area. And to be fair, this guy does. But the beauty of this guy, he has no interest in power or domination or anything like that, other than having a certain amount of control over Jessica Jones personally, which I thought was a really cool element because he's purely focused on her. Yes, he's causing trouble around the city and doing things, but that's just his nature. It's not so much an evil plan. He's just doing what he does typically because of how having his power has shaped him as a human being, which I really liked. It's David Tennant who plays him, and he does a great job of being just your guy next door, average Joe. He's a total dirtbag jerk, but they also establish that it comes from a place where you can almost understand it because of the way that he was raised and the way that his power just naturally corrupts, because essentially his power is what's the word, like control. Like he will just ask someone to do something and they'll do it, like almost like hypnosis, but it just happens from him speaking. And so he'll be like, hey, go stand in front of that bus, and someone will just walk down the street and get hit by a bus. And after many years of that being, like, even through your formative years, having that level of control, then people's free will would stop mattering to you because it doesn't exist to you, and that sort of becomes the crux of the plot line with Jessica Jones, is that he becomes aware that she's the first ever person who his power not doesn't work on, but there's an element of her ability to say no. And so here's a guy who's his whole life, he's gotten everything he ever wanted just by asking, because he knows it'll get given to him. Suddenly there's someone who can say no to him. So he obsesses over that. And he's like, I want to feel love. I want her to love me of her own accord. So he won't use his powers on her, even though they sort of work sort of don't. He can still control her. And he's made the choice of going, okay, I've finally got somebody who I can convince to truly love me as a person, even though she hates his guts, without me just going, hey, you love me, and they do. It's just a really interesting dynamic, and it's very small in its scope, which is, I think, something that's a little bit different in this genre, and yeah, so it's definitely worth a watch, man. Definitely, everybody plays the shit out of their roles, and there's some Luke Cage action in there, which sort of ties into the new series that's out now and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it's been on the list for a while. I just haven't really gotten around to it. I'm horrible with TV shows.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a lot of time.
it is. Yeah, that's right. But it's but that's the beauty of, like, if you get something like Netflix, you can literally just binge watch that entire thing over a weekend. Or if you could get it through other nefarious means on the internet, however you want to do it.
Well, I mean, I have today and tomorrow off.
Yeah, there you go. Jessica Jones time. Yeah, so what else is new? What else has come out lately? I feel like there's some other stuff to talk about.
I actually want to hit on a point that, well, the way you were talking about going back to Jessica Jones, or I think you were like making that first attempt to watch it, and you were like, oh, this show ties into this show, and we might as well watch it, blah blah blah. It's kind of gotten to that point with like Marvel in general. or like even just like superhero movies. It almost feels like we're being forced to watch these
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
because like if we miss out on one, then we don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. But I mean,
Even
it's,
though even though that's not even the case, like you could not watch any of the Iron Man movies and still be completely in the loop with what's going on in the grand scheme of things.
yeah, yeah. But I mean,
You'd just be like, who's this fucking asshole?
I don't know that there's that much of a difference between that and say back before things like Netflix. Everyone's TV watching habits were very focused on a very fine line of what was popular. And if you weren't up to date with Sons of Anarchy and you weren't up to date with Breaking Bad and all of these other shows back before we were spoiled for choice, you felt like you were missing out. You know what I mean? You couldn't be the guy who didn't watch that. And I think it's sort of the same, but rather than it being just your friends and family who are on your case about it, it's the studios themselves. You know, make sure you watch Jessica Jones, or you won't get Luke Cage, and then you won't get the what are they called, the Defenders, and all this stuff. So you really have to plan your TV watching habits like 3 seasons in advance, because you're like, well, I mean, back when like Arrow started, it's like, well, I really want to get into Legends of Tomorrow, but before I do that, I guess I'm gonna have to watch Flash and Arrow and all the other shit. It's just, you're sort of like you're getting almost punished by the studio if you come across a season of stuff you don't like, which is what happened with me with Supergirl initially, because we were working our way through all those shows and Supergirl came out and I'm like, okay, Supergirl's pretty cool. And I started watching it, and honestly, man, the first 4 or 5 episodes of that show is a serious punishment. It just didn't seem to land to me at all, especially coming off just watching The Flash, which has, as you know, like a ton of heart. It's still cheesy sci-fi television, but it does
it's CW television.
It does, but it captures you wholeheartedly by the end of the season. You're well engaged in these people's lives because it has so much heart. And then I'm watching the first few episodes of Supergirl going, oh no, this is not created for my demographic. This isn't me at all. And I honestly remember sitting there thinking, how am I going to make it through this whole season? Because I felt like I had to. But then it's like somebody pulled aside the showrunners or something and said, look, you're fucking driving this into the dirt. Fix it. We got too much writing on this. Or maybe it was because it was on a different network or whatever. But for whatever reason, it just, man. But then the show just does a 180 and it becomes very Flash-esque. You know what I mean? It starts to develop that heart. She gets to take on some good villains. They stop focusing on her role as a female version of Superman and start focusing on her as a superhero. And I think that's what the show really needed. It was getting a bit whiny at the start. It almost to me felt a little defensive because of, I think, everybody's notion that, oh man, this is just going to be, it's a superhero show for chicks. It's got a chick in it, I'm not watching that. Supergirl isn't as cool as Superman, so why would I watch it? But as soon as they stopped focusing on that element and just started making her a great hero, it didn't matter anymore. And it just became a brilliant show. I think they might have just been creating the show out of a little bit of fear fear of failure, maybe, because like the nerd community, they I guess they figured they'd already established the fact they weren't going to like it. And it wasn't the case at all. Like it's done really well. And a lot of people who've watched it, I know, have sort of said the same thing, Yeah, so you haven't seen that one yet either.
I'm actually about 4 episodes in, and I sort of just stopped. And
yeah, okay,
and you've told me like after episode 4 or so, it like does a 180 somewhere.
Yeah. So definitely get back into it, man. Like, I mean, it is what it is. None of those shows are really to be taken too seriously, but that's their role in the universe. Like the Flash you see, like the Grant Gustin Flash, is never going to be as I guess taken as seriously as the one in the Justice League movie, just by the nature of the way that they create that content. They want that to be dark and mysterious, and he's going to be maybe the comic relief, which is sort of Flash. It's a pretty good role for Flash to be that guy, but at the same time, it's going to be a much darker theme than the by comparison, the small world problems that Grant Gustin's Flash has to come up against. You know, a lot of his problems are very personal as well, with Zoom and all that sort of stuff. You know, so I'm really curious to see this new movie for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Justice League, and the Wonder Woman movie too. The trailer for that looks pretty sick.
Oh yeah, that looks phenomenal. I'm more excited for that than I am for Justice League.
Yeah,
to be honest. Yeah, I love Wonder Woman though. So
yeah. What was I saying? I heard something the other day about Batman. Affleck's Batman. Cast somebody or something like that. I can't remember. Batfleck. Yeah.
I don't know. I sort of, the only news on that stuff I see is on Facebook because people like that stuff. Like they click the like button on articles on pages that they like.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't like any of those pages because I don't need to. I get the information anyway. I'm just like, oh, thanks. You know, you're doing my work for me.
Yeah. It's sort of like aggregating stuff that you were already probably looking into. You know?
Yeah, it'll be like, oh, Corey liked this article, and it's like, oh, you know, friggin' Deadpool 2 is cast blah 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 as Cable. I'm like, oh, sweet, you know.
There you go. To me that's Reddit. You know, I just check. It's to me Reddit's the newspaper. My front page is tailored to just give me all of the geek news basically.
Yeah.
And that's basically where I sort of get all that stuff from. And I mean, very rarely do I hear something on Facebook that I didn't already know because I saw it on Reddit 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but Reddit can be a very powerful sort of resource if you don't read too far into it. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I like. You know, you can often, like, there's diehard people on there who will do that sort of research and put it up there for everyone to see. So you don't have to, which is cool. And then you can just glean the headline and then have a really strong opinion about it and bitch about it on Facebook. Classic internet. Okay, so let me see what I'm going to do here. How do you destroy a building?
You like draw it complete and then just sort of take chunks out of it?
Yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. I don't know how far behind the stream is, but I'm sort of taking panels out of these walls and things like that. And I'm gonna have to maybe come up with a way of taking this like a chunk out of the corner or something. I might do it over here because I've got other panels to go in here. Yeah, so I mean, I've got her sort of sitting on, I guess, what would have been some sort of interconnecting thing between the two buildings across the street. And now I just got to think logically about what that would actually be, because it's a little bit it's a bit strange. Like it's almost like a sky bridge, but I haven't drawn it big enough to be a sky bridge, you know? So I might have to widen that out or something. I'm thinking about that. Yeah.
You could always just, you know, start over again.
Yeah, good point. All right. No, just kidding. No, you know what? I'm sticking with this one for better or worse.
How many page ones have you done, do you think?
I've done, I think it's really just been 3, I think.
3, which is, you know, variations of.
Yeah, all very different. I think, but I mean, it's not so much that I've been drawing page 1 over and over and over. I've been trying to figure out the look I want. I want to start out for it to be consistent throughout the whole book. And the way you develop a style is by repetitively working, like keep doing work, doing the artwork. And I mean, I could have arbitrarily been drawing anything, not necessarily page 1. The reason I was doing it is because I wanted to, if it came up with something good, at least I've got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. Just in case.
But that's the thing. Like I realized the other day, putting up all of this stuff streaming wise, and you know, putting up a podcast, coming up with a logo for that, and all this sort of stuff, and how you host the podcast is you actually have to host it yourself, as you know, and iTunes just basically aggregates that data from from an RSS feed. So Apple never has that podcast hosted on a server. They just tell your podcast browser where the stream comes from, you know. So anyway, I've put it up on my personal art web page. And then I sort of thought, well, hang on, I've got my art web page up there, but I haven't got anything about Homoko King on there, like marketing it from that perspective, which as I start to get more panels and stuff done, I'll put my artwork up and stuff up on the page. And then it occurred to me, like, when you go to my web page, it immediately flashes up some artwork of, like, you know, I mean, I think the orangutan painting I did, and then, you know, Batgirl and all those sort of cycle up through the gallery and things like that. But I don't have a picture of Nissa to put up there. And I'm like, typically when an artist embarks on a journey like this, they'll spend a week or two just doing sketches of characters and coming up with a look for the book and all that sort of stuff. And that's a whole step that I seem to have missed. I never got around to doing that. And so I think that's what it is. Doing page one over and over and over is sort of developing that, figuring out a look, what tools to use, what method to render it. You know, like originally I'm like, well, I want to use, you know, ink with, you know, a quill or whatever. And it just doesn't suit my style. So now I know that, you know, I'll be using more marker-based solutions, you know, and again, still probably using watercolor and all that sort of stuff. But these are things that I know now. And the last thing I want to do is get halfway through the book and then realize I hated what I was doing and then tear it up, you know. But this is the thing too. I'm going to have to spend some time and really nut out these characters and figure out a look for like not a look so much, but have a reference image of Nissa. Like I started doing a digital painting the other night that I think I showed you. That's
you sent me a message.
Like just a basis for her features at best, so that at least when I'm drawing her in whatever angle, I can think back to that and think of the scale of her, you know, facial dimensions and stuff. Yeah. Because, you know, if she's not recognizable throughout the book, then she's not the main character, you know. And things like that. So, you know, and then obviously coming up with other things for people that other characters and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's one of those things I've got to sort of get onto before I get too deeply into it. But at the same time, obviously, I want to make a start. So,
you should ask your new friend Sean Murphy for advice.
Oh yeah, me and Sean, we go way back now, like to like 2 nights ago when we conversed on Twitter. Anybody who listened to podcast number 1 knows that I'm pretty heavily influenced by. I wouldn't say I'm influenced by Sean Murphy, because that's sort of
inspired.
That's dragging his work down to my level. He's a true master of the genre, and I love his backstory. I love how he sort of came about, and all that sort of stuff. And there's something that's been bugging me, because, like, as we all know, this whole comic book thing is a new venture for me. I mean, I've drawn my whole life, and I've always done artwork and stuff like that. But as you sort of start thinking about doing a comic book and stuff, you look at a lot of comic books and you realize that there's a lot of things that you just don't know. How to do certain things, how things are done. Even just simply, like, I mean, I was agonizing for weeks over just what paper to use and stuff, because it seems like all professional comic book artists tend to use the same resources, the same materials. And there's not a lot of information out there. Like, you think that there'd be, you know, everyone would be endorsed by somebody and there'd be tutorials all over YouTube about how such and such, how Jim Lee does this and how, you know, this person does that. There really isn't. Like, I would see Scotty Young doing a sketch or whatever on just his Instagram, like a daily sketch. And he'll, you know how they always do the thing where they'll leave, like, there's the picture and then they'll just put some pencils next to it so you know that they drew it. And there was markers and stuff. Or I'd see him do a little video where he was using this tiny little weird brush thing that I'd never seen before. And then I'd see that somewhere else. And I'd be like, what is that? Where do I get it from? And there's no way to just, I'd search and stuff and just come up with no answers. Like, people just find their own materials and resources. And I think I got too caught up in worrying what everyone else was doing as opposed to just doing what I've been doing for the last 30 years. You know what I mean? And that's what I decided. I'm just going to do it my way and worry about it all later. And so anyway, talking with Sean Murphy, he's black and white works, like stuff, Punk Rock Jesus and all that sort of stuff. And even in his modern stuff, he does it a little bit now. But I think as using a colorist, there's more options available. But he'd often do his black and whites. And if there was something dark in the picture, he'd shade it with halftone effect. So like newsprint, you know, the dots. you know, and the way that he sort of did it, it always felt very organic. It didn't feel like he just pulled it into a computer and recolored it. And so it's been bothering me. And I'm like, I remember hearing years ago or reading years ago in like some book, like, you know, How to Draw Anime or, you know, one of those sort of books, that there was these rub-on sort of half-toning effects where you'd get like a sheet of plastic with black dots on it and you could hold it down and scratch it off with your, like trace it onto the paper with your pencil. And I thought, well, maybe he's doing that because it like I said, it feels organic. And so I thought, you know, there's only one way to find out. So I tweeted it, expecting never to get a response. And literally like 5 minutes later, I look at my phone, I've got a notification. I'm like, well, that's weird. I never get notifications on Twitter. And there's Sean Murphy telling me, oh yeah, dude, I use Photoshop. I'm like, okay, one, I'm a little bummed. But two, holy shit.
Holy shit, it's Sean Murphy.
Yeah. And so, you know, that blew my mind. I was really stoked about that. Yeah, so there's my little brush with fame. I tell you what, man, you should check out his I think his Instagram is like Sean_G_Murphy. But he's currently doing Batman stuff, and like the sketches and stuff he's got up for Batman look fucking amazing. Like just the pencils and stuff like that.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mr. Murphy, you read Seven to Eternity, right?
I did, yes.
Did it feel like it was a similar art style to Sean Murphy's?
It is. In that, well, I would say, in fact, funny you should say that, I have it right here. I would say it's a little bit more traditional comic than Sean Murphy does, but I noticed some similarities in the way that he frames things, and all that sort of like compositionally, I should say, I guess maybe not so much in the character design, and definitely certainly the coloring's different than what Sean Murphy. Much more vibrant colors, much more digital looking in its the way that it's colored. But boy, this is Jerome Pena, great artist, and again, he's great at framing action. You know, one frame, I'll see if I can find it, that I noticed particularly, which to me was a standout, which, I mean, maybe not the most impressive drawing in history or anything, but what stood out to me, he's riding into town. Where is it?
That's like near the end, isn't it?
Yeah, this one here. He's riding into town, and this dude's walking along beside him on his mount, and he's just giving him shit. But just the way that he did this, he came up with this composition of this little frame down here where the camera's sort of panned up and over his shoulder looking down on this guy. And again, thinking of, as I have been lately, about perspective and vanishing points and stuff, and the way that this guy, he's got the perspective just right on this guy's body, the way that, you know, that it seems, because you look at it every day, it seems like something like that would be very simple. And getting the ratio and the relationship between these two guys in the frame as accurate as he had is way more complicated than it seems. And it's not, I don't think it's something that he sat and measured out. I think it's just his eye. He's just good with that sort of thing. But, you know, like what they call, I can't think of the word now. I'm blanking. I can't think of it. It's the term for foreshortening. When something comes close to the camera, it becomes a lot bigger. There you go. So see, like my hand compared to my face is way different in scale than it would be if my hand was back here, you know, and that's what's called foreshortening. My arm looks way shorter than it would be if it was stuck out sideways. And so these are the things. So like the foreshortening here would be his head is much larger in perspective than the rest of his body, you know. And it's just one of those things you get a knack for, I suppose. Or unless, you know, maybe he used reference. I don't know. That's a possibility as well. You could take, I mean, something like this, you might like look at this and go, oh, hang on, there's a heap of shots in this that were in Conan the Barbarian or something he might have taken from reference. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but, you know, there could be very well a frame in a movie of Arnold Schwarzenegger riding a horse with some little imp dude running along beside him. I honestly don't know. To me, the perspective and everything, and this is just beautifully composed, you know. And so that even like some innocuous little frame like that probably didn't mean anything to anyone else, it spoke volumes to me about Jerome's style, you know. And this is the first time I've ever looked at any of his work, so you know, I won't say I'm being judgmental because this dude's amazing, but I definitely sort of take in a lot of ephemeral data, I guess, you know, stuff that's probably not that important to the average reader.
Yeah.
You know, everyone takes something, their own thing out of things. But again, here you go. Like, you go straight to the back of this issue 1, and the very first thing you see is sketches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the main character. This is 3 different revisions of how he's going to look. This is like this and this. This is all of the stuff that I probably should work on in the background and really get that down. So at least I've got something as a point of reference. So when I'm drawing, every time I draw a coat or a jacket or, you know, even a hairstyle, it comes from a point of reference instead of just making it up to suit the composition, which is always the temptation, you know. But yeah.
That the whole book itself, it gave me like a lot of. I think I told you earlier this week, it gave me a lot of Homoko King vibes. Like I was like, not so much in terms of the characters and the what would you call them, just creatures and stuff that you see in the world, but the world itself, like the world building.
Yeah.
That's the kind of level I want to achieve. Because reading the book, I was like, it's interesting. It's got an interesting start, and I want to know more about not so much the main dude and what he's going through, but more about the world itself. And that last panel where you see what's his name? It's like the Whisperer.
Yeah,
Or the
God of Whispers or something.
Sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
Like that, I could picture the villain, the Homoko King himself. Like I can picture a shot like that.
Yeah, framed up with that same style.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was kind of thinking along the same lines as far as, like, this is the crazy thing about this book is it doesn't spend any time expositionally describing the world and how it works. It just throws you straight into the middle of it with what seems like an established canon or an established, like a providence. Like there's, you know, no one's surprised that everyone's riding around in these weird elks, you know what I mean? And things like that. And they don't go, hey, we better explain that. Or, you know, the fact that they use these weird eel-looking things in conjunction with smaller eels around their head as a bow and arrow, you know, and there's a personal connection between the arrow and the archer to make the kill. And I mean, that in itself is noble, and it speaks volumes about the types of people that they are. They're almost like, it feels like a nomadic race of people who've developed their culture from centuries of living off the land and in harmony with the world around them. But then the actual look and style of it is kind of like, not colonial America, but, you know, like, what would you call it? You know, when everyone sort of went out across the land, in the, you know, pioneering sort of, that's exactly what it is. You know, like even just the style of clothing, the houses that they live in, you know, the fact that they use firearms, but rarely because the resources are limited. It just has this weird cross culture thing going on where it almost feels like elements of it seem Nordic. Like you'd expect a Viking warrior to be riding around on one of these, you know, weird elk creature things. Almost like the new God of War game. You know what I mean? I would expect that, you know. In the trailer, they hunt something that looks very similar to this guy's mount, you know.
Yeah, I think Remender actually mentioned that. He said, you know, I wanted, like they've been thinking about doing this for, I think it was like 10 years or something. And they wanted to make a book, a world where they will discover new things about it along with the reader.
Yes, cool.
Like, I mean, obviously they need to establish rules and laws within the world, but
it's not open season.
yeah. But yeah, they want to do it like that. They just want to see where this goes. Definitely got that vibe. I was like definitely from the first issue. I was thinking to myself, like I feel like they wrote the first issue then they were like, okay, this is where the story.
where do we go from here? Shit, it just got real. Yeah, no, I'm with you there, man. Like it's definitely a world sort of to aspire to as far as creativity goes, you know.
Oh yeah.
And like that's part of the thing. I mean, we're sort of going through the same thing where we're both going to be discovering things as I draw them, and I come up with questions that may not have occurred to you in your, you know, like mind's eye as you were writing them. Like there might be logistical problems I have with drawing particular things. As far
Like
as
motorbikes.
Yes, so there'll be no motorbikes in Homoko King, everybody. No, but like you know, or not so much logistical problems, but problems that I'll have with like things that we haven't thought of. Like I'll be like, oh shit, I've really got to flesh this out somehow, and we haven't established what that looks like yet, or what that means.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing I've got to sort of look into, and try and think ahead and come up with these solutions, or at least run them by you and say, hey, would this work in with the rest of what you've got in mind? I mean, but I would say that this is probably the kind of thing that's typical of any sort of union people writing and drawing. Man, this is tricky.
Yeah. I mean, I am giving you a lot of freedom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
To do what you want. I'm not like an early Kevin Smith, you know, stick to the script.
Before he met Tracy Jordan. Went, holy shit, people can come up with their own stuff and it's funny. Yeah.
But yeah, I think even you said to me very early on that you will need a lot of guidance. And a lot of sort of like, you know, this is what it looks like and this is what I'm picturing and blah blah blah. I mean, you've sort of come out of that a bit. I mean, this whole forced perspective thing is 100% your idea.
Yeah. Well, it's more just, it's not that, it's necessary. Like, I mean, I can show you, you know, I'll just flip open any comic book ever and I can show you how they've used vanishing points in pretty much everything that they've drawn. And it's just not something that always comes first to my mind. You know, I'm always about sort of roughing out a basic thing and then filling in the details as quickly as possible to get the picture done. And, you know, composition, and all that. And actually, you know what? This is going to be a funny point of reference. But speaking of this, a lot of what made me think about this is I Hate Fairyland, Scotty Young, because he's the master of it. Even though you throw away a lot of it because you know it's cartoon. You know what I mean? You tend to not notice the amazing sort of dynamics within this, and mostly because it's hyper active. You know what I mean? Like every emotion is really pushed to the limit. But framing, composition, like I mean, I keep referring back to, like, you know, using film terminology, but framing, the shots and stuff like that. Like, it's real easy. Like, I mean, have a look at any of these pages, and
I love that. I love that the splash page of the little dude eating the crap out of the thing.
But see here, right here is a brilliant example of vanishing points. So if you look at it, let me just grab a couple of rulers here. You can follow the lines of these, like the outside of this crate, all the way back to a vanishing point, which would be over here, say, right? Let's just say, you know, as a basic instructional tutorial on vanishing points. Say the vanishing point met up, say, there somewhere. You can then follow that line to any of these other vertices in any of these boxes. So you can see, like right there, you follow this along and it's the top of this box. It's also the bottom of this line here. Like, and then it goes back this way. This is what's called, I mean, it's basically dual vanishing points. So what that would look like, I have a piece of paper. Well, actually, here's one where I was playing with it earlier.
Here's one I prepared earlier.
Let me just cover the address that's on this envelope. But okay, so you've got a picture here. Like that's what you frame, and you want to do like buildings or something like that. And you're like, okay, I need 2 vanishing points, one over here, one over here. And that's dictated by the horizon line, which is through there. So this horizon line sort of dictates how your elevation as a viewer. So say, for example, you were going to be like really low looking up, then your horizon line is going to be low. Hang on, I'm trying to remember now. So that would make okay. Well, let's do an experiment. So say the horizon line is low in the picture, right? There's your 2 points. So all of your vertices are going to originate from those points. So say I'm drawing a building, right? And we're standing there looking at the corner of the building. You follow this line up here and this line to this vanishing point, and there's the top edges of your thing. So as you can see, we're a little person looking up, and all of your vertical lines are still going to be vertical. There's different. You can often take two different vanishing points to do different things in the same picture, but this gives you an example. So say you're drawing a building. I'm a little guy looking at the top. Look upwards towards the top of a building, right? So there it is. But if you're doing, here's an experiment I did with this frame. See, originally I had it slightly off center. It wasn't looking straight down, but it became really weird getting these other buildings to play nice with the vanishing point. This was a singular vanishing point right in the middle, same as what I'm doing with this picture. So say again, here's a picture, and let's say we want the horizon line way up high. Right? So that means you're looking downwards. Here's your vanishing point there and here. And you want to draw like a building. It's going to be like this. And so now, and again, we'll follow that line down there. This line here. And then like the back wall of the building is still going to follow through to that vanishing point. And this one's going to follow through to this vanishing point. And see, now we're looking down on a building. And all of this looks really, really simple in theory, but when you're putting together a piece like this, where literally every single item in this picture is like affected by those vanishing points, you need to sort of take that into account. And the beauty of it is how loose it is. So, like my first instinct would be grab a ruler and draw all the vanishing points in, and maybe he did that, and then he went over it in ink and did it sort of loose and freehand. Or maybe he just visualized it in his head and went, okay, let's draw these ones this way and this one this way, and just ended up with this result. But it seems like an awful lot of work and very complex because he's got little elements of it all over the place that all need to be in relationship with one another. So this crate here has to exist in the same world as this crate over here. And you can see that their vanishing points are finishing in the same point. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he freehanded this anyway, just simply because the vanishing points on this panel are going to be so far off to the side, it'd be hard to keep track of, with say a ruler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I saw a trick somebody did the other day online where he had like the panel he was working on, and he had a piece of, I guess, elastic nailed down to make a straight line in the horizon line, and then he had like a paperclip or something hooked on it so he could pull the line up and just use that as a ruler. So if you want a line here, you pull it up to that angle and it'll always be going back to the vanishing point. And then if you want a lower line, just bring it down a little bit. There it is there, and then you pull it down here and you've got these lines going upwards. It was freaking genius. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody used something like that if they were doing a piece like this. But so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's how vanishing points work on a very, very basic understanding, which is what I have. Okay, so I'm still working on messing up this building. It's very important that this is a good panel.
We did get sidetracked for a bit, so
yeah. Well, that's the point. I mean, what are we going to talk about for an hour if not this?
Fair enough.
I might put that back up there. So that's less complicated. Okay, so let's say. Funny thing is, I've been so fixated on making a big splash image for the very first panel, and then when you look at 7 to Eternity, that's the first frame. it's this tiny little strip at the top of the page with like a hand or two hands and a blade, I guess, you know. And I'm like, yeah, all right. You make your statement, I'll make mine. Yeah. There we go.
Well, different strokes.
Yeah, exactly. And different pen strokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you end up reading Tokyo Ghost, the last one?
Yeah. Yeah, and I cried a little in my heart. For many reasons. You know what? I think I might have been so upset by it I've blocked it out though. What happens at the end? Spoilers, everybody. What happens at the end again? So she's left with this paradox where it's like you can have lead back.
You have to say I'm right.
Yeah. Say I'm right, and I'll put you into this world. Basically, I'll pull you into the Matrix, and you can have everything you ever wanted back again. No harm, no foul. And this is. Sorry.
Everyone on Earth dies.
Yeah, but do they though? Like their consciousness exists. Like this is the thing. Like from his perspective, he's actually not a villain. He's a douchebag. There's no denying that. We're talking about what is it, Davey?
There's that one. Yeah, Davey.
Havoc.
Oh God, what his last name? Yeah, Davey Havoc.
Oh wait, no, that's the singer from some band. Davey.
Oh.
Something or other.
Oh my God, you're killing me, man.
Sorry, man. He's he's trying to do the right thing, and he's aligned himself with some other colossal douchebags to sort of gain a little bit of power. But and there's no denying that he's a villain. But really, what he's offering isn't such a bad alternative when you weigh it against the world as it stands at that point. You know.
Yeah.
Everybody's addicted to tech. You know, everybody is. I mean, it's no. To be fair, for most of the people that this decision affects, it's not going to change much.
I was going to say everyone's plugged in anyway.
They're already trapped in a virtual world, yeah. So, like, what are they really losing? You know, and I mean, it could be. You could argue that Deb's position on it is actually very selfish.
I think she even says it herself. Like she's just very selfish.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, it's easy to see her as the hero because that's the role she's sort of cast in. But really, it's kind of tricky to sort of justify her position on it. Other than the fact that it's the most Puritan one, you know.
Yeah. She says no.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And
she ends up dying.
This, making the decision for everybody. But you know, I mean, I guess the spin on it is that, you know, nature finds a way, and you know, like eventually, the nature will reclaim everything anyway, and you know, the world will move on. I guess.
Well, even then, it probably wouldn't have if Deb didn't make that decision.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Bloody Davey. Yeah, but what a book though, man! Like, you know what? It's one of those things that I'd honestly be considering, even though I own all the issues, I'll probably buy the trade as well, just to have it in book format. To if I ever read it again, it's just like
it's all there.
It's a book, you know what I mean? Because it really is. It's a singular story that you know, takes place across what is it, 9 issues or whatever it is. I'm probably miscalculating.
I wasn't a big fan of like the last. I think it was like the last page. When the kid goes off on his own, like, you know, the group of friends is like, you know, we're gonna go play bloody cops and robbers or whatever the fuck they were gonna do, and
yeah,
the other kid's like, oh no, I've got other stuff to do, blah blah blah, and he fucks off, opens up this bag and pulls out a Game Boy and David's on it. I was like, that was a bit cheesy.
It's a little Hollywood. It's like sequel, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that they'll be highbrow enough not to sort of go into that territory. Maybe, who knows? Having said that, God, if they can put that team together again to do it something else or to do that, I'll definitely read it. You know, I'm not gonna.
If they can pull it off, but
yeah,
like the endings seem pretty final, apart from that little little
Yeah,
thing at the end.
I mean it's a nod to one of those old creature feature things where the kid's got the gremlin in the bag or some shit, But yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting spin. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. The Game Boy. Oh Jesus, but it kind of makes sense because Davey had all that old school tech.
Yeah.
He had the what was it, the Power Glove and the Atari joystick and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, maybe. Just trying to think, what else are you reading at the moment?
A lot of the DC sort of standard stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't picked up anything in like a month.
Mm.
Broke as shit, but um, I actually did go in last week, the week before, just to get like some of the independent stuff that I'm reading,
Yeah.
and some of the Vertigo stuff. Like you, I'm also reading I Hate Fairyland.
Yeah.
Um, what else am I reading?
It just
Horizon, I've started reading.
Horizon.
Yeah, it's about these aliens come to Earth
Mm.
to stop Earth from invading their planet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a reverse sort of War of the Worlds kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Proactive
the,
aliens.
the art isn't the greatest in the world, but
Mm.
the story's interesting. Like a lot of the art falls very flat.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, that's a stylistic choice as well,
Yeah, definitely. Um,
Um,
I'm not his greatest fan, but I don't mind.
yeah. So, but the writing's good.
Writing's pretty good so far.
Yeah.
It hasn't blown me away or anything,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely interested.
Okay.
Other than that, it's a lot of the DC crap, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading this other book called Cleaning Room. It's a Vertigo book.
Okay.
It's pretty
Cleaning
fucked
Room.
up.
What's it about?
I don't even know how to explain it.
Okay.
Think if someone investigated Scientology and found out that aliens really existed and Scientology is trying to stop them from killing everyone.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Yeah. Nice.
So, yeah, like there is this like I don't even know if you call it a religious group, but like it's like a big just institution in Cleaning Room
Mm-hmm.
that it just screams Scientology.
Yeah.
People join, they have levels of like access and all this other stuff, and the leader's very how do I say it? She has a presence about her. Like
Mm-hmm.
when she's in the room, she's the only person you're looking at.
Yeah.
Sort of
Fair
thing.
enough. Yeah.
But yeah, and like she has this room called the Clean Room where she takes people in and she can. It's so fucking hard to explain. Oh my god. She can essentially just fuck with them.
Mm.
And she can break someone down into nothing and rebuild them the way she wants.
Yeah.
But yeah, she as a young child she got run over by a car. I think was it no. Someone she knew was driving it? No, it was just like a truck driver or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave her the ability to see these aliens. Like they're already on Earth and preparing to invade, but no one can see them except for her.
Mm-hmm.
And this other woman, this reporter whose husband killed herself because he was part of that group, the institution.
Yep.
She starts investigating. She finds all this stuff out and wants to put a stop to everything. And it's very twisted.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more complex than what I'm used to reading from a comic book.
Okay.
But it's definitely interesting. Definitely.
All right. Well, it's definitely one to put on this. Okay. That we might call it a day, man. Thanks for watching, everybody, and listening. We'll see you next one. Cool.
Yes.
Thanks, man.
Alrighty.
Bye.